8 deadly mistakes that musicians make. Mistake number 1.
The other day I got an email from an artist who was asking me to click on his link to stream his music, and the first thing that came to my mind was like, why should I click on your link? Like, tell me why. Is it gonna put me in a good mood? Is it gonna make me wanna dance? Is it gonna make me wanna get into the mosh pit? Is it gonna make me wanna go 100 miles an hour down the Pacific Coast Highway while I listen to your music? Like, sell that emotional benefit. Get me interested, get me excited. Don't just say, click on this link and play it. Don't just say. If you guys want to get a lot more clicks and you want to get a lot more out of your promotion, you got to think about this concept. It's called selling the benefits. It's selling what is in it for the customer.
Selling what is in it for the customer.
Don't just say, click on this link and play it. Think about this, you guys.
Mistake number 2.
So the other day I was in the studio talking with the producer, and he was telling me how he was working with an artist that made his life completely impossible. Literally on the session, everything that he was telling the artist to do, the artist just challenged him. Now think about how freaking ridiculous this is. The artist paid him to go into the studio, and that doesn't take his advice. It's like paying a doctor, right? Or going in to see your doctor, and the doctor giving you advice, and then you just argue with him the whole time. Think about how unconstructive and how absolutely stupid that is, right? So here's the lesson in this. Number 1, if you're gonna go into the studio and you're gonna work with people on a creative basis, you have to learn how to trust people, right? Now that trust typically comes from your own research and ability to suss out the proper producers and people you should be working with in the first place. You don't go into the studio because someone has a Pro Tool rig in their garage, right? You go in the studio because you listen to everything that they've done, you like the stuff that they've done, and you've maybe asked for maybe referrals from people. So when you go into the session, you go in trusting that person and willing to be open and trying new things. And I'm gonna tell you from experience, man, when I've gone and worked with producers and have just trusted them, magic happens, right? Where you just like something that you would have never tried before, and you just go for it, and just it's unbelievable. So don't pay a doctor for advice and then just basically ignore their advice. That is just useless for everyone all the way around, right?
Right?
Mistake number 3.
So today after class, a student walked up to me and said, that's a very inspiring lecture. What drives you? And I said, good question. Internal motivation. That's what we all need a little bit more of. But unfortunately, people are always looking for that external motivation, some other force that's going to come by, kick them in the butt and get them to do shit. But note, it's you versus you. You have the power within to decide what you want to do with your life, what you want to do with your career, and how hard you're going to work to get it. That's called intrinsic motivation, and that's what we all need a little bit more of. So just remember, you got to find your passion, find your drive, and live your life like it's the last day that you have to live. Stop waiting around for other forces to kick you in the ass. You got to kick yourself in the ass. Again, it's you versus you. You versus you.
Mistake number 4.
So recently I hooked up this independent artist that has really not done anything at all with their career. I hooked them up to open up for a huge artist, and it was for a benefit show for the people in Ukraine that were getting their houses blown up and pretty much living on the streets, right? So I hooked up this artist with this deal. They called the promoter, and then they start getting prima donna and diva and start negotiating that they want hotel rooms and they want everything to be paid for. And I'm thinking, this is for a freaking benefit for people that don't have homes, and you're negotiating for like hotels and shit. So to make a long story short, they blew the gig. So remember this, you guys, this is the number 1 important lesson. You have to remember that in the beginning of your career, it's not always what you earn, it's what you learn. You've got to be willing to make sacrifices as an independent artist, man, or you're not going to get anywhere. You got to put the bigger picture first at all times. So you got to come down off your, high horse with all that diva bullshit. Sure, you pay dues, man, but there's a lot more dues to pay, okay? If you want to pay your dues and use your head, remember, it's not always what you earn, it's what you learn.
Mistake number 5.
The other day I was talking to a student who was telling me about how he wants to go ahead and start making some money with his music when he gets out of school. Totally understandable, right? Because he has to support himself. So the first thing I told him to do is obviously try to look for things that you can do with your music first before you do the side hustles like Uber and stuff like that are outside of your music realm, right? So I talked about things like teaching guitar lessons. I talked about things like maybe doing a church gig or maybe a cruise ship gig. These are steady gigs that have steady money and can actually, help you build up your chops, pay the rent and that type of thing until maybe you get into something that you want to do like your original music and so on and so forth, right? So I told the student to start literally calling every single music store in Southern California, sending out his resume, going and visit with them. And at the end of the conversation, instead of seeing like a fired up student that was just like, hell yes, man, I'm going to go out and kill it, I saw someone more that was filled with fear. Like, oh my God, that sounds like a lot of work. Do you mean I've got to like give my resume to every single store out there and I've got to go out there and hustle and get rejected and so on and so forth? And the freaking answer is absolutely yes, you do. You've got to do crazy things if you want to do crazy results. And you've got to use your fear like fire to cook for you and not to burn you. Right? You got to get out there and you got to hustle. You can't be afraid. Of course you're going to get rejection, but rejection is actually going to lead to success eventually. That's the way you got to look at it.
Mistake number 6.
So recently a client came into me and telling me that he was very unhappy that he wasn't getting more people to his live shows. So as it turns out, his conclusion was that he thought he needed a talent agent so that they can get better gigs, right? Okay, that's an interesting conclusion, but perhaps there's a better way to look at this, right? Maybe what you really need is a more differentiated stage show so that you're more exciting and interesting. Okay, here's another example. Another client came in to me telling me that he was unhappy that he wasn't growing his Instagram fast enough. His conclusion was that he needed a PR agent to help grow those numbers, right? Okay, that's an interesting conclusion, but perhaps we can look at this another way, right? Maybe what you need is more interesting and engaging content so that you can grow your numbers that way. Okay, so now that you guys are really pissed off at me, let's look at the lesson in all of this. So first of all, what you need to understand is that as independent artists, we have to stop looking at the symptoms and trying to solve them with band-aids, the quick 1-800 number fixes, right? What we really need to be doing is we need to be really looking at the root cause of the problem, the actual disease, and trying to solve that. But the problem with all of that is that's too hard, right? It could never be me. It could never be my songwriting. It could never be my brand. It's always the outside external things that you can fix with some promotion company or PR agent or booking agent to take care of the problem. But we need to change all that, you guys, because if you want real growth, if you want real change, we need to start looking at the root cause of the problem. So remember this, you guys. We don't want to just look at the symptoms and we don't want to just put band-aids on them. We want to go deeper down to the actual disease and we need to find cures. And we need to find cures.
Mistake number 7.
The other day I was working with a client. He was required to make a small investment. All he had to do was purchase a music business book for about $30. $30, what's $30 worth? $30 is nothing. It's maybe 3 of those Starbucks cappuccino, frappuccino, matchalanos with the whipped cream and the chocolate chips and the cherry, right? Maybe it's 3 packs of cigarettes. Maybe it's a round of drinks. Whatever the case is, we're talking $30 of an investment in your career that can potentially help you make hundreds of thousands of dollars. But here's what the client decided to do instead. He decided to try to go online and find an illegal hacked version of this music business resource to take a music business class on copyright law with the teacher that actually wrote the book. Come on, man, like what are you thinking? Right? And here is the lesson. If you guys are not willing to make little sacrifices and prioritize what's important to you and actually make an investment in yourself, then who is going to want to make an investment in you, right? Who is going to say, oh, that looks attractive. Here's a kid that always is cutting corners. Here's a kid that always wants the simplest approach. Here's the kid that doesn't want to make any sacrifices. That's not the way to do it, you guys. You got to understand what's important in your life. You've got to be willing to make sacrifices and you've got to be willing to invest in yourself. All right, you guys think about this because this is extremely important, right?
Right?
Mistake number 8.
The other day, I was on a Facebook group page for Berklee College of Music, and I noticed a post by a student that said the following. It said, hey, does anybody have a free PDF of the course book? And I was thinking, how ridiculous. You want a free, illegally hacked version of the book so that you can learn about music business and copyright law while you're infringing copyright law. And then interestingly enough, on another post, I saw somebody else on TikTok whining and complaining that their beat got ripped off by some other artist and they felt that their rights had been violated. So look at the two contrasting points. Isn't this crazy? On one hand, you have somebody willing to infringe the rights of somebody else. And then on the other hand, you have somebody else whining and crying that their rights are being infringed. So look, you guys, it's a two-way street. If you want your copyright laws respected, then you have to respect the laws of other people as well. It's that simple. And without copyright laws, you guys, you'd be better off quitting music and becoming a doctor because there would be no opportunity for you to make money if everybody's always using your shit without paying you, right? So come on, you guys, let's get it together. It's a two-way street. My name is Bobby Borg, helping musicians turn their art into more successful business. Peace, love.
Later.
8 deadly mistakes that musicians make. Avoid them at all costs.